Alex Butterfield, an author of the book In My Father's House, covered criminal justice for the New York Times for almost 15 years and wrote books on black families with multiple generations of criminals, but wanted to disentangle race from crime and show how crime as a whole runs in families. In his findings, 5% of families account for half of all crime. So let's look into it. Hi, my name is Jess, and please join me as we look together top 10 evil families in America you've never heard of. Oh, and before we begin, in the last video I was in, top 10 evil experiments in history not told in textbooks, I gave you guys a riddle. The riddle was, what disappears as soon as you say its name? The answer is silence. Your next riddle will be at the end of this video. Anyways, let's get started. Number 10, Barbara Opel. Barbara Opel needed money, and she was living with Jerry Dwayne Heyman, age 64, and his mother, 89. Including living with her 13-year-old daughter, she thought, hey, you know what? I know these old people we're living with has money, so I'm going to hire my daughter and her friends, or 5 teenagers, and tell them to steal $40,000 from Jerry and his mother. So she hired her 13-year-old daughter, paid $220 to a 14-year-old named Kyle, and his 13-year-old cousin $100, and a 17-year-old Jeffrey Goat to have a getaway car. The 5 teens ambushed Hyman and attacked him with knives and baseball bats. Hyman's body was found 8 days later in a shallow grave roughly 10 miles from the house, and Barbara's other children, aged 7 and 11, were instructed to mop up the blood. During the trial, Opel denied that she wanted him dead. In fact, she would say that she was telling her friends as a joke, I just wish he was dead, not that he actually was dead. After all, language is important. But what was also important is the fact that she was found guilty and barely skimmed the death penalty, as the jury could not find a unanimous decision. Following her conviction, she was banned to contact her children or be in the same prison with them, as her daughter Heather pleaded guilty of the first degree at the age of 14. She received life in prison with a non-parole of 22 years, making her only eligible as of now, 2023, as she is now 36 years old. Opel is currently incarcerated at the Washington Correction Center for Women, and her case has been featured in shows with the episodes titled Mommy's Little Killers. Number 9, Buffalo Crime Family. The Italian-American organized crime syndicate have been also called as the Buffalo Mafia, located in Buffalo, New York. Like all other organized crime families, they have engaged in various criminal activities over the years, including extortion, racketeering, illegal gambling, loan sharking, and trafficking. They were also established in the 1930s, and over the years, law enforcement's efforts include successful prosecutions and increased scrutiny have weakened the Buffalo crime family. Additionally, internal conflicts and changing criminal landscapes have impacted its influence. The activities of the Buffalo crime family have a significant impact on the city of Buffalo itself and its surrounding region, and they have been involved in various criminal enterprises and have influenced the local economy and social dynamics. Last update of this family was of January 2022, as their power and influence has greatly diminished compared to its formative years. It's believed that the family's activities have become more low profile and focused on traditional organized crime enterprises. Number 8, Turpin. The Turpin case refers to a severe and widely publicized case of harm and mistreatments in captivity involving the Turpin family. The case came into light of January 2018 when David and Louise Turpin were arrested for holding their 13 children captive in their home in Paris, California, to USA. Turpin children ranged in age from 2 to 29 years old at the time of the discovery and were found malnourished, living in vulgar conditions, and subjected to severe physical and emotional harm, often kept in locked rooms with limited access to food and basic necessities. They were allowed to shower only once a year and were not permitted to engage in normal childhood activities, and the case came into light when one of the Turpin daughters, 17-year-old at the time, managed to escape through a window and contact the police. She used a deactivated cell phone found in the house to make an emergency call. David and Louise Turpin were arrested on January 14, 2018, and were initially charged with multiple counts of torment, false imprisonment, and more. They pleaded guilty to 14 charges. The Turpin case received significant media coverage and sparked a national and international discussion on harm, neglect, and the role of child protective services. But unfortunately, the same child services that were meant to protect the children of this family also resulted in them being in foster care systems that also failed them and caused more harm. In a general nutshell, a complete and utter disaster. Number 7, Sante and Kenneth Kimes. Sante and Kenneth Kimes were a mother and daughter duo involved in a series of notorious criminal activities, including fraud, identity theft, and murder. Sante and Kenneth Kimes were a mother and son duo involved in a series of notorious criminal activities, including fraud, identity theft, and killings. Sante Kimes were born in 1934, and her son was born in 1974. They were involved in various fraudulent schemes, including embezzlement, insurance fraud, and theft. They were used multiple aliases and false identities to carry out their schemes. And finally, after a fatal crime committed by the two, of the life of David Kasdan. Kasdan was a wealthy New York businessman who they had befriended and only had the intention of killing him to somehow attempt to steal his fortune. The investigation into the crime of David revealed a history of criminal activities by the Kemsies, and law enforcement agencies in several states had been investigating them for a several range of offenses. In addition of the crime of David, the Kenneths were linked to other criminal activities, including disappearance and presumed killings of other individuals who had been associated with them. In 2000, Sante and Kenneth Keames were both convicted of multiple charges, including death, conspiracy, and fraud. They were both sentenced in life imprisonment and without the possibility of parole. Number 6, the Bogles. In the case of the Bogles, had ended after having 60 members of the family in jail or in prison. The statistics of this family is actually pretty extraordinary, and in the book I mentioned in the opening, In My Father's House by Fox Butterfield, discovered in his research of this family and how many members there were that were convicted at one point in their life. Looking at family values and behavior in the cases of the Bogles, they were actually very conscious of intimidating the behavior of their father and their aunts and uncles and grandmothers and grandfathers, an opinion that been fundamental to our understanding of human nature, since when it comes to the psychologist Harry Harlow demonstrated that a strong emotional bond with one's parents and a secure attachment can make all the difference in a child's emotional and social development. In this family, crimes include robbing, fraud, drug possession, child endangerment, death, drunk driving, kidnapping, physically harming somebody, strangulation, and so much more. But one member of the family decided to break the cycle, Ashley Bodle, as the first college graduate of her family in 150 years, and I wish Ashley a heartfelt good luck in her endeavors. Number 5, Gertrude Baniszewski. Gertrude was an American woman who gained infamy for her involvement in the torment and death of Sylvia Likens, a 16-year-old girl in 1965. The case is often referred to as one of the most gruesome and shocking crimes in American history. Gertrude was a mother of 7 children. Sylvia Likens and her sister, Jenny Likens, were left in the care of the family by their parents, who were traveling with a carnival. Gertrude was paid by the girls' parents to take care of them, and over a course of several months, Sylvia was subjected to extreme physical and emotional harm at the hands of Gertrude, her children, and several neighborhood youths. Apparently, one of Gertrude's children was very jealous of Sylvia. The abuse included beatings, burnings, and other forms of torture. And in October 1965, Sylvia succumbed to her injuries and died as a result of the prolonged harm. Sylvia's death was eventually discovered by authorities and charged in connection of Sylvia's murder. So the entire neighborhood was basically in on it. She was initially sentenced to death, but her sentence was later commuted to a life imprisonment, and she's paroled in 1985, but she died of lung cancer in 1990. Number 4, Rivera. Although the Rivera family's photos on social media suggest a very close group with a loving get-togethers, community service, and family outings, have an unfortunate strain of pain and remorse. Angel Rivera and his son Christopher Otero Rivera Montalvo, husband, had been arrested for killing of Nicole Montalvo. Wanda Rivera, the family matriarch, is accused of tampering with evidence and lying to investigators. And Nicholas Rivera, the family's youngest son, is considered a person of interest in Montalvo's killings. Montalvo's remains were actually found in the Rivera's property in St. Cloud and a vacant lot on Henry J. Avenue owned by Nicholas Rivera, who also faces 8 unrelated counts of possessing CP. The Florida County Sheriff Russ Gibson called it probably the most gruesome crime scene he has ever seen in 32 years of law enforcement. Little information has been made public about the investigation, and according to the judge leading the trial has said if the crime doesn't deserve a life sentence, then what does? Both Christopher and Angel were sentenced to life prison for second degree. Additionally, they both received another 15 years for dismembering a human body and another 5 for tampering with the evidence. Number 3, Daybell. Lori Vallow Daybell is an American woman who gained national and international attention due to her involvement in a complex and tragic case involving the disappearance and death of her children. Lori Vallow has been married multiple times, and her most notable marriage was to Charles Vallow, who died in July 2019, and then Chad Daybell, an author of an apocalyptic-themed books, where she married shortly after the death of Charles. Lori Vallow's children, Tylee Ryan, age 17, and Joshua J.J. Vallow, age 7 years old, were last seen in September 2019. Their disappearance raised concerns, and it was later revealed that Lori and her new husband, Chad, were uncooperative in providing information about their whereabouts. Lori and Chad faced increasing scrutiny for the law enforcement and the public. They were eventually located in Hawaii and were served with court orders to produce the children. Lori was arrested in Hawaii and extradited to Idaho, and she faced multiple charges, including abandonment and contempt of court. The remains of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow were discovered on Chad Daybell's property in Salem, Idaho. Autopsy later confirmed their identity. Following the discovery of the bodies, both Lori and Chad faced additional charges, including conspiracy to commit death. Their cases gained widespread media attention. Number 2, Daniel and Jessica Groves. Noted in local news in Ohio, the parents of a baby boy was found dead in a well and have been guilty on multiple charges. The jury convicted Jessica Groves on all 11 accounts, including death, and Daniel Groves on all but one charge. aggravated death. The couple was convicted on what would have been their baby Dylan's Grove's first birthday. Following their conviction, Jessica was sentenced to life in prison without parole plus an additional 32 years, and Daniel was sentenced to 47. The couple stood trial for their death of their 2-month-old son. They were arrested on June 2019 after Dylan's decomposed body was found at the bottom of a 30-foot well near their home. According to the county coroner's office, the 2-month-old's body was wrapped in plastic bags and duct tape and then placed in milk crates secured by chains, padlocks, and zip ties. Dylan's cause of death was determined as homicidal violence, and the child had survived multiple bone fractures and broken ribs, as well as methamphetamine and amphetamine was found in his system. The duo Daniel and Jessica were harmful and had purposeful damages, and Dylan had initially placed in the foster care after he was born with drugs in his system, but the failure of the foster system again allowed them to have access to their child again. That the case of Dylan had brought national attention to Ohio's opioid epidemic and the state family's reunification process. Even the director of the county's child services stepped down after the agent's mishandling of Dylan's case that resulted in his death. Number 1. Sackler. Speaking of opioid epidemic crisis, want to know who was responsible in a wider scale of this crisis? Yes, I know, maybe you have heard of them, considering they own a large pharma company that ended up going on bankrupt. But hey, don't worry, these rich folks are okay, as they later founded another company called Mundi Pharma, which is a British multinational research-based company that located in the UK, Canada, Germany, and Singapore. Not a lot of people know about them, so it's worth noting who's responsible for the opioid crisis due to the irresponsibilities of this family. Geographically, specifically, the opioid crisis in the United States and Canada. And also it's worth noting that they were called the most evil family in America, as well as the worst dealers in history multiple times. And considering the fact that they had over 1,600 cases against them, as they persuaded the American medical market that strong opioids should be distributed. After all, in accordance to an article in 2022 by the Harvard School of Public Health, without urgent intervention of over 1.2 million people in the US and Canada will die from an opioid overdose by the end of the decade. But this family wanted to sell it anyway, because they don't care. And despite the bankruptcy they endured, the family still has billions of dollars. Forbes estimate that the family comprises of 40 members, still worth about $10.8 billion, so don't worry, these rich people are fine. But the many people who suffered under the addictions caused by their recklessness are not. Anyways, did you learn anything interesting today? Let me know. And for your next riddle, how many words are in the alphabet? Be sure to put your answer in the comments below, and I'll reveal the answer in the next video, Top 10 Disturbing Moments in History You Wish You Could Forget, Part 2. That's all for today. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jess. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see your beautiful faces in the next one. Bye!